I was known throughout Yong'an as the most virtuous of wives. Dutiful to my in-laws above, harmonious with my sisters-in-law below. Even when my husband wished to elevate a concubine to equal wife status, I responded with understanding grace. Our great Zhao does not recognize equal wives-in-law. I fear this would only bring Miss Sophia disgrace. Perhaps you should divorce me first, and when the storm passes, I shall return as the equal wife instead. The letter from Miss Sophia arrived while I was receiving instruction in my mother-in-law's courtyard. 4 senior maids, Rose, Lily, Orchid, and Chrysanthemum, stood in a row before us. My mother-in-law spoke with cold authority. Choose one to take back with you. She must enter Sebastian's chamber tonight, or I shall be forced to arrange a formal concubine for him myself. I bowed my head submissively. Your daughter-in-law will do her utmost. Perhaps seeing my docile acceptance, she sighed. I take no pleasure in making this difficult for you, but you have been married 5 years and my son is already 25 years old. Look around Yong'an. What family has a son his age still without children? Even a daughter would be something. I understood my mother-in-law's predicament. She had never been harsh with me ordinarily, but now she was driven to desperation. My husband Sebastian stubbornly insisted on having only one wife, absolutely refusing concubines or bed servants. Yet after 5 years of marriage, we had not received the blessing of children from the goddess of fertility, not even one child. On the way home, my maid Charlotte whispered urgently, "Miss, the master's devotion to you alone is a blessing. Don't let the old mistress frighten you. Without the master's consent, any concubine brought in would merely be keeping an empty vigil. You mustn't be foolish and quarrel with him over this." Her analysis was so astute, she hardly seemed like a maid from the Whitmore household anymore. I tapped her head playfully. Such talk is hardly proper for a young woman. Mind that Nanny Chen doesn't overhear and have you beaten. I am called Margaret Whitmore, the 13th daughter of this generation in the scholarly Whitmore family of Yong'an. When I was very young, I had an older sister by blood. She was said to be the most fiery-spirited daughter the Whitmore family had produced in a century. When her husband showed favor to a concubine and caused the death of her own daughter, she set fire to her husband, his mistress, her in-laws, and herself. Along with their lives, the reputation of Whitmore daughters burned as well. Everyone said that while her husband may have been wrong, my sister's act of taking his life was terrifying. If this was how the Whitmores raised their daughters, no family would dare seek marriage with us. Grandfather expelled my sister from the family records, and neither her husband's family nor ours would claim her remains, all to silence the wagging tongues. Yet Whitmore daughters remained unmarriageable to prominent families for more than 10 years. Mother gathered up all the books my sister had read and forbade me to learn any of the skills she had mastered. Throughout my childhood, the words I heard most often were spoken as Mother stroked my head with sorrowful eyes. "Margaret, you are my only daughter now. Be obedient. You must become the most gentle and compliant woman in all of Yong'an." And gentle I was. When Mother told me to read Instructions for Women, I read it faithfully. When she said a husband was his wife's heaven, I believed that freedom from jealousy and envy, along with quiet gentleness, were a woman's greatest virtues. By the time I came of age, every lady in Yong'an who had met me knew that the 13th daughter of the Whitmores was the most proper young woman imaginable. Yet still no prominent family dared marry me. At 17, just as Mother despaired and prepared to marry me to a scholar from a modest family like my cousins, the Harrison family came calling. The matchmaker smiled at Mother, saying, "Mrs. Harrison has heard of your harmonious and well-mannered daughter and is quite taken with her. She sent me to explore the possibility." This was one of Yong'an's most distinguished families. Mother maintained proper etiquette. waiting for them to call 3 times to show their sincerity before eagerly agreeing. Grandfather provided a generous dowry and gave me Nanny Chen, the most protocol-minded woman in our household. The elderly woman looked at me with earnest eyes. "Good child, your nieces are growing up as well. Their future depends entirely on how well you conduct yourself." I had been born late, and many of my nieces were close to my own age. I understood grandfather's meaning. After more than 10 years, my sister had become only a faint shadow. If I conducted myself properly, people would once again accept Whitmore daughters. Bearing such responsibility, I entered marriage with trepidation. Yet I never expected my husband, Sebastian Harrison, to be such a gentleman of noble character. He was elegant as a cypress, gentle in temperament, and considerate in his treatment of me. He didn't even keep the bed servants commonly found among young masters of great families. At first, I was anxious. Women have their monthly cycles, and arranging household matters for my husband's needs, and for the sake of heirs, was my duty. Especially after the 2nd year, when I still showed no signs of pregnancy, but Sebastian refused such arrangements. Initially, I thought the servants I had selected didn't suit his taste. After much deliberation, I asked him directly, but he merely shook his head. "Having a wife like you, all others are as grass. I have no interest in them." Such sweet words were not part of my upbringing. A strange sweetness bloomed in my heart, so unfamiliar it frightened me. To avoid being consumed by this feeling, I became even more diligent in seeking suitable concubines for him. When the household yielded no candidates, I searched among educated daughters of modest families. My mother-in-law praised my understanding, and others spoke only admiringly of me. Yet this very understanding provoked Sebastian's first anger toward me. He pointed to portraits of various women and demanded, "Margaret, if I truly spent moonlit evenings with them in intimate embrace, would you feel no pain, no jealousy?" The word jealousy terrified me, and I shook my head frantically. Of course I wouldn't be jealous. Seeking what's best for my husband? How could I feel jealousy? He looked at me with a smile that seemed to grind his teeth. "Excellent, excellent. My wife is so magnanimous. I was petty to worry." He swept his sleeve and stormed out. From that night forward, he slept alone in his study and ceased visiting my chambers. My mother-in-law sighed. "You are a good child, but Sebastian has been stubborn since childhood. Go and coax him. If he won't even visit your room, there's even less hope for children." With my mother-in-law's words as guidance, I stopped actively suggesting concubines, since following elders' teachings was the more important virtue. But last year, my mother-in-law could no longer sit idle. I looked at Chrysanthemum and said, "Since you were bestowed by an elder, my husband surely won't treat you too harshly. Wait in the west chamber for his return." Charlotte persisted stubbornly. When Nanny Chen was absent, she closed the door and produced a letter. "Miss, look how the master thinks of you even while on duty. He sent a message home. Would you really share such a devoted husband with another?" The envelope bore my husband's handwriting, "To my beloved wife." I smiled as I opened it, but inside was written, "Mrs. Whitmore, if you wish to know who truly holds Sebastian's heart, come quickly to the Flying Crane Tower." The handwriting resembled my husband's, but was more delicate and feminine. Charlotte craned her neck curiously, immediately indignant. "What shameless woman dares send you such a letter?" "Miss, let's go confront her." The Whitmore household had always been too strict, extending even to the servants. These years of relative freedom in the Harrison household had made Charlotte fond of reading tales of wandering heroes, sometimes adopting their bold speech. Since we had grown up like sisters, I had always indulged her, so I nodded. "Very well, let's meet her." At the Flying Crane Tower, a young maid waited for us, leading us to a private room. She whispered, Our mistress is with Master Harrison in the next room. There's a small opening in this wall. You can both see and hear them clearly. Everything else? Well, you'll see for yourself." The opening was small. I peered through once and saw Sebastian embracing a beautiful woman. Propriety demanded I look no further, so I stepped back. But as the maid had said, I could hear their conversation perfectly. The woman spoke angrily. "Sebastian, you promised me that she was merely for appearances. Now you want me to be only an equal wife?" Sebastian's voice lacked its usual composure, filled with heartache and urgency. "You're with child. Don't become so agitated. Did you forget why I married her? When your family was exiled, Mother wouldn't let me leave unless I took a wife. How else could I have protected you during your banishment? The 13th daughter of the Whitmores is famous throughout Yong'an for being pliable as dough. That's why I chose her, and you knew this, didn't you?" At these words, the woman's anger subsided somewhat, and she pouted playfully. "I don't care. I have a child now, and she doesn't. You must go back and talk to her. Make her leave. In your courtyard, there can only be me." Sebastian sighed softly. "Sophia, I've been giving her medicine to prevent pregnancy for 5 years. We've wronged her terribly. I'll never touch her again, but let her keep the empty title of wife to live comfortably for life as compensation. Is that acceptable?" I touched my belly. "So that's why I had no children." Charlotte opened her mouth to curse, but I covered it and pulled her from the adjoining room. She raged. "Miss, they're treating you terribly. How dare they? Let me go tear them apart." I shook my head, feeling oddly pleased. "That lady carries a child, the child my mother-in-law has long awaited." Charlotte's eyes reddened with tears. "But it's the master's child with another woman. He's betrayed you and gotten another woman pregnant behind your back. Miss, if you're hurting, just cry it out." I looked at her seriously. "Nonsense. A virtuous woman wouldn't be hurt at such a time. She would only rejoice for the family." As I finished speaking, a mocking laugh came from the doorway. "Mrs. Whitmore, you truly are the most spineless woman in all Yong'an. I've brought the battle to your doorstep, yet you still speak of virtue." She was completely different from me, sharp and commanding, able to draw all eyes the moment she appeared. She continued, "Regardless of what you're thinking, I must make things clear. I'm not Sophia Rivers stealing your husband. You've been occupying my place for 5 years. Sebastian was always mine. You're the interloper." She told me of her history with Sebastian, how they were childhood sweethearts who had grown up together, promising to spend their lives as one. She described their deep connection. Her first cosmetic brush was Sebastian's gift, her first embroidered pouch hung at his waist, and they had pledged eternal love. But when she was 17, just as their families were about to exchange betrothal documents, her father was implicated in a scandal and the entire family exiled. For prominent families, love mattered less than avoiding disgrace. The Harrisons immediately denied any serious intention, claiming they had merely been considering the match, something common among young people of their station. But Sebastian was devoted to love. He refused to abandon her, using his position as the most promising scholar in his generation to secretly protect the Rivers family in exile while rejecting his mother's matchmaking attempts. After 2 years of refusals, Mrs. Harrison discovered his efforts. The family confined him, declaring he would remain locked away until he agreed to marry. Though this posed no immediate threat to his prospects, Sophia faced danger without his protection during her exile. Sebastian finally yielded, choosing me, the most compliant daughter in Yong'an, ensuring that even if Sophia later returned, I would lack the backbone to trouble her. Sophia looked at me mockingly. "Did you think that tenderness and loyalty were truly for you? He was merely convincing the Harrisons that he no longer loved me, that protecting me was only for old friendship's sake. This way they wouldn't trouble me or prevent his aid. Margaret, how pitiful you are. Every kindness you received from him was stolen from me. But now I refuse to let you steal any more. He must be completely mine. If you have any self-respect, you'll leave on your own." Her lips moved constantly, but my gaze remained fixed on her belly. Concerned she might become thirsty, I offered her tea. "Miss Rivers, please don't agitate yourself. The child comes first. I'll listen to whatever you say." She struck my hand away, staring at me in shock as if I were some strange creature. "Margaret, I'm declaring war on you. How can you remain so calm? Do you not take me seriously?" I sighed and repeated, "The child comes first. Whatever demands you make, the Harrison family will do our best to accommodate." Sophia Rivers stormed off in frustration, and Charlotte was equally exasperated with me. She puffed her cheeks. "Miss, do you have no temper at all?" Then she dropped her head sadly. "Oh yes, Miss Whitmore isn't allowed to have a temper." I patted her head with a smile. "But the Whitmore maids are allowed to have tempers. You can be angry on my behalf while I visit the medicine shop." At the apothecary, I purchased every expensive pregnancy-preserving herb available. The physician knew me. He had been helping regulate my health these past 2 years. He asked in surprise, "Are you with child? I should visit the mansion to examine you properly, not have you come here personally." I shook my head cheerfully. "Not me, but it's still happy news for the family. You'll understand soon enough." This season brought wealthy families to select autumn and winter tonics. Many servants in the main hall recognized me, and though they dared not approach directly, their curious glances followed me constantly. The sight of Margaret Whitmore, who had been childless for 5 years, purchasing pregnancy herbs would certainly provoke whispers. Yet I pretended not to notice, paid for my herbs, and departed. Sebastian returned very late. I waited with a lamp burning. He had been drinking and leaned back in his chair, unable to meet my eyes. "Margaret, 6 months ago, I compromised a woman while intoxicated. She now carries my child. I wish to bring her into the household." I feigned ignorance of the situation, adding unusual joy to my usual compliance. "Is this truly so? Pregnancy is joyful news. I must tell mother immediately." Sebastian looked up with a complex expression of both relief and melancholy. "Margaret, sometimes I wonder what it would take to make you jealous." I lowered my head. "You jest, husband. Taking concubines is my duty." At the word concubines, he frowned. "This presents another complication. She comes from a good family that refuses to let her become a concubine." "I wish to discuss making her an equal wife," I asked routinely. "Oh? How distinguished is her family?" "Her name is Sophia Rivers. Her father was formerly Minister of Public Works. Though implicated in political struggles years ago, His Majesty now intends to restore him to at least assistant minister level." When mentioning official positions, he glanced at me carefully and took my hand comfortingly. "Your eldest brother will have future opportunities." Our Whitmore family's older generation had mostly retired, and my eldest brother was the most promising of our generation. He was currently competing for the very assistant minister position Sebastian mentioned. I withdrew my hand and smiled gently. "I don't understand outside affairs, but if she's an assistant minister's daughter and carrying your child, wouldn't equal wife status still wrong her? After all, under Great Zhao law, an equal wife remains a concubine with merely a prettier title, likely to attract imperial censure. Perhaps this way would be better. You could divorce me first and marry Miss Rivers properly. After she enters the household, I could return as the equal wife." "Margaret, what nonsense are you speaking? How could I possibly divorce you?" Sebastian leaped from his chair in apparent fury. "Divorce you? How would a rule-following woman like you survive? Would your rigid family even accept your return? Even if you took religious vows, someone of your nature would only be bullied. His anger seemed genuine enough that I couldn't help but redden my eyes. Since you care so much for me, I naturally must consider the Harrison family's interests. Miss Rivers comes from excellent background and clearly holds your affection. With such talent and breeding, she'll surely raise children well. After seeing physicians all these years, I know I'll never bear children in this lifetime. Her child represents the Harrison family's future. If I selfishly cling to the mistress position, wouldn't that create difficulties for the child later? Hearing mention of Sophia Rivers and her child, Sebastian grew calmer. Reading his expression carefully, I asked my final question. Unless you believe I might still bear my own children? This question silenced him completely, sinking back into his chair. He indeed had no intention of letting me bear children to threaten Sophia Rivers. I wiped away non-existent tears and smiled. Besides, I wouldn't truly be leaving. We could handle everything quietly file divorce papers, let you hold a proper wedding with Miss Rivers to establish her position, then quietly restore my household registration. If others discover this later, we could say I was ashamed of failing to provide you with children and requested it myself. That way, the censors couldn't fault you or your father. Husband, wronging me alone is better than wronging Miss Rivers and her child. Sebastian fell silent. After a long while, he touched my face gently. Margaret, you're always so understanding enough to break one's heart. Sebastian was apparently truly moved by me. He decided to handle the divorce and remarriage himself, sparing me from facing his parents. The family closeted themselves for half a day of discussion. By dinner time, my mother-in-law summoned me. My father-in-law merely gave me an approving glance before departing. Mother-in-law took my hands with affection. Good child, your thoughtfulness shines through again. You needn't worry. You'll have the west courtyard, she'll have the east. No distinction between primary and secondary, you'll both be my good daughters-in-law. I'll never let anyone mistreat you. After years of hoping for grandchildren, with one finally on the way and the Rivers family able to benefit Sebastian's career, my mother-in-law was genuinely delighted. Seeing her beaming face, I smiled as well. Yes, I trust Mother will treat me kindly. Afterward, the Harrison household entered a flurry of activity unrelated to me. Sebastian planned to give Sophia Rivers a proper wedding. Though limited by reputation in terms of guests, within the family it would be a complete 3-matchmaker, 6-ceremony affair. I encountered Sophia Rivers once more at the medicine shop. She looked at me with complicated feelings. Mrs. Whitmore, you're truly mad. In all of Yong'an, people called me soft. She was the first to call me mad. I raised the tonic medicines I held and smiled, offering them to her. I was getting these for you anyway. Since we've met, I'll give them to you directly. This time she didn't mock me, only said with pity, Now I believe you truly are the most rule-following woman alive. Then follow your rules and live peacefully in the West Courtyard. But she still didn't understand what women under such rules were truly like. A woman like me, who could neither bear her husband, children, nor avoid divorce, would, if narrow-minded enough, simply throw herself in the river rather than continue living. The day the divorce papers were finalized happened to be rainy. Amid the red silk decorating the courtyard, Charlotte and I left the house. Charlotte nervously grasped my hand. Miss, must we really jump? I nodded. We must. You've become too spirited under my care to return to the Whitmores. Don't worry, I'll take care of you for life. In the drizzling weather, the riverbank held few people, though some were present. Charlotte and I walked to a more distant spot, ensuring the nearest person would need considerable time to reach us, then jumped in with 2 splashes. The winter river water was icy cold, soaking through our padded clothes and pulling us downward. I gripped Charlotte's hand tightly, fearing she might be swept away. From the distant shore came growing clamor. "Help! Someone's jumped in the river! Can anyone swim? Quick! Save them!" Margaret Whitmore, Young Anne's most spineless woman, had done the most decisive thing of all. Her husband had divorced her to remarry, and to preserve the Whitmore daughter's reputation, she threw herself in the river to prove her virtue. This became the city's most sensational recent gossip. Alas, such a pitiful woman, only 22 when she died. Indeed, this Harrison family is truly despicable. Taking a young wife and having children is one thing, but why divorce the first wife? For women of great families, divorce is as good as forcing them to death. My aunt's sister's nephew's wife serves in a high official's household. She heard that Mrs. Whitmore was an extremely accommodating wife. When the mistress became pregnant, she happily went out to buy tonics for her. Yet despite such tolerance, she still lost her life. When their own daughter died like this, didn't the Whitmores make trouble? How could they not? My great-nephew's wife said that originally the Whitmores taught their daughters to be the most docile among all great families. But this time the Harrisons were completely unreasonable. Mrs. Whitmore never opposed taking concubines, yet the Harrisons quietly divorced her without even informing her family. Even if a husband is his wife's heaven, there are limits to unreasonableness. Every family has daughters and sisters. My nephew's wife's mistress is holding back her anger, waiting to see the Harrison family's downfall. Actually, I know a little secret. They say Mrs. Whitmore's body was swept away by strong currents. They only found clothing and a shoe. The heartless Harrison man refuses to accept his wife's death, leading search parties day and night along the riverbank. In such strong currents, with Mrs. Whitmore unable to swim, how could she survive? The Whitmores, heartbroken for their daughter and fearing she'd become a wandering spirit, erected a memorial tomb. The funeral procession might pass right in front of this tea house today. Amid the heated discussion, Charlotte breathed a great sigh of relief. "Miss, we truly haven't implicated the Whitmore family. We've actually helped them." The tension in my heart finally eased, showing the first hint of a smile. I hadn't misjudged grandfather. He wasn't unwilling to defend Whitmore daughters. He was waiting for the right opportunity. These years, my good behavior in the Harrison family had gradually allowed my nieces to marry into higher circles, though those who suffered wrong still had to endure them. Before leaving the Harrison household, I left Nanny Chen a letter explaining Sophia Rivers's pregnancy, the completion of betrothal ceremonies between the Harrison and Rivers families, my divorce, and my plan to die proving my virtue. Though Nanny Chen would grieve, her worldly experience would tell her how to maximize this situation's benefits. While the Harrison family was clearly wrong, the Whitmores would make a great commotion. From now on, my death would completely overshadow my sisters, allowing Whitmore daughters to marry appropriately and have family support when wronged. After enjoying the family support for more than 10 years, this was the final debt Margaret Whitmore could repay. From today forward, I would no longer be called Margaret Whitmore. I chose this second-floor window seat at the tea house to bid farewell to my former self. As that gentleman said, Margaret Whitmore's funeral procession would pass this way. In the sea of white mourning garments, my eldest brother walked at the front. 10 years my senior, he had been the most indulgent toward me in those early years before mother forbade him from entering my courtyard. Unable to see me, he devoted himself even harder to scholarship, hoping to elevate the Whitmore family so none would dare criticize our daughters. But official advancement proves difficult. He and grandfather had always strived, yet only achieved steady progress. I hadn't looked carefully at him in years. His face now bore weathering, and this dignified man's eyes were swollen like walnuts from weeping. My second brother followed behind, somewhat better composed, but with a reddened nose. As a member of the younger generation, my parents couldn't attend my funeral, but seeing eldest brother's condition told me how heartbroken mother must be. Charlotte asked quietly, "Shouldn't we tell your mother?" My heart ached terribly, yet I hardened myself and shook my head. No, I no longer wished to be a Whitmore daughter. Mother still had my eldest and second brothers, plus many grandchildren. Her grief would pass. But if I returned as a Whitmore daughter, I would eventually need to remarry. Even if the rules weren't as strict as before, there would still be many rules. My life had been confined within square courtyards for more than 20 years. I wanted to see places without walls. I came here to see my family, but I never expected Sebastian to appear. At first glance, I hardly dared believe it was him, the man who had always been refined and upright, as if nothing could break his spirit, now wore clothes that hadn't been changed in days, wrinkled beyond recognition. His hem was even tucked into his belt, with wet trouser legs and boots clearly showing he'd rushed from the riverbank. In complete dishevelment, he stood blocking the path before the coffin, his face filled with determination. "Brother-in-law, Margaret isn't dead. You cannot bury her." My eldest brother responded by stepping forward and delivering 2 resounding slaps. He struck hard enough to draw blood from Sebastian's mouth, yet unsatisfied, he shouted, "Let me ask you, in 5 years of marriage to my sister, did she ever fail in filial duty to your parents? Did she ever quarrel with her sisters-in-law? Did she ever wrong your Harrison family in the slightest?" With each question, Sebastian retreated a step, shaking his head with difficulty. Or was she narrow-minded, unwilling to manage your household or provide the Harrison family with children? At this, Sebastian's eyes filled with bitterness. No, Margaret Whitmore was always the most rule-following woman. She would never, could never be jealous. His answer pushed eldest brother's anger to its peak. Grabbing Sebastian's collar, he cried in anguish, "You know she didn't dare feel jealousy. She had already done everything possible, yet your Harrison family divorced her anyway. Divorcing her wasn't enough now that she's gone. You come to her coffin to slander her. You claim my sister isn't dead. Then where has she gone? Do you mean that 7 days have passed, she's alive, but doesn't return home or send word, watching her parents and family suffer? Your Harrison family is truly remarkable, first forcing her to request divorce, now besmirching her as unfilial and disloyal. Sebastian, even if my sister didn't consider you, she would consider her elderly parents. In 5 years of marriage, did you think her capable of such heartless behavior? The former Margaret Whitmore would never, could never do such a thing. Sebastian's face showed growing panic as he desperately denied, No, perhaps she was just trapped somewhere. Yes, that must be it. She was swept away by water, might be unconscious. She... Eldest brother released him, his face full of scorn. So you're searching the riverbank with great fanfare. Do you think we didn't search? Every male in the Whitmore family went looking, but she's gone, simply gone. Sebastian, you showed her no consideration in life, so why this performance of deep affection in death? You say she requested the divorce herself, and I believe it. She was so gentle, afraid of causing anyone the slightest trouble. But if you had spent even a moment's genuine thought on her, you'd have known that losing her position as primary wife would fill her with guilt toward our family. She chose you over herself. And what were you doing? Your current behavior merely shows you can't accept that you caused her death. Let me tell you clearly, my sister is dead, killed by you, dead in the icy winter river. And our Whitmore family will never rest until justice is done. Sebastian wept like a child, crouching on the ground with his head in his hands, sobbing uncontrollably. eldest brother ignored him, stepping around to continue escorting my coffin. Charlotte frantically wiped my face. "Miss, why are you crying? Do you miss the eldest young master? Shall we go home?" I touched my cheeks. Was I crying? Perhaps because that man was Sebastian, whom I both loved and hated. Sebastian was wrong. I could feel jealousy and envy. I felt it the first time I discovered Sophia Rivers's existence. That year, the 17-year-old Margaret Whitmore had married into the Harrison family, trembling with fear. She was rigid, boring, full of rules, but she was only 17 and she was afraid of disgracing the Whitmore family before a completely strange household and husband. She clung tightly to Mother's teachings, not daring to make a single mistake. Sebastian soothed her fears. No one knew that I had made an error on our wedding night. Too shy after the ceremony, I refused to wake Charlotte for water when thirsty at midnight. In my confusion, I drank wine left on the table instead of our ceremonial wine. This wine was stronger than the gentle ceremonial variety Sebastian had brought. Just one sip made me oversleep the next morning. Yet facing his parents, Sebastian smiled and said, "Your son has been tired these past days and overslept. Please don't blame us." I didn't yet understand love, but I felt secure. I had married a husband willing to protect his wife. For a long time, I didn't know what love was. When Sebastian treated me well, I became more considerate in caring for his meals and daily life. When Sebastian refused concubines, I worked harder to find women who seemed suitable for him. Until he said his refusal to take concubines was because he wanted us to be together for life, just the two of us. I felt no happiness, only fear. How could a primary wife, especially a childless one, selfishly monopolize her husband? That was jealousy, unfilial behavior, impropriety. It would bring shame to the Whitmore family. Yet strangely, when mother-in-law told me to stop making such arrangements, my heart secretly felt relieved. I thought I should repay Sebastian, so I began learning to read the poetry he loved. Sebastian's study wasn't off-limits to me. He was probably confident that someone as careful and spiritless as I would never cause trouble even if I discovered something. Then I found Sophia Rivers's letter tucked between book pages. To this day, I remember it clearly. Apricot blossom writing paper with several rows of elegant script. "Sebastian, even if it's just an act, I'm still angry." My heart didn't hurt immediately, it was just numb. Too numb to understand what those words meant. Too numb to know why I was crying. This was the advantage of following rules. Being naturally slow-witted meant that even when every inch of my body ached, no one noticed my pain. Perhaps that was the moment I began to hate. If I had remained the rigid wooden Margaret Whitmore of before, if I had never seen Sebastian's loving facade, I would have simply smiled and inquired how to bring this woman into our household. But this man was crueler than any honest scoundrel. He used daily tenderness to make a wooden puppet grow a heart, then told the puppet after its heart formed that his relationship with me was merely an act to protect another woman. He didn't want the heart that the wooden person had painstakingly, agonizingly grown by tearing apart her very self. The 20-year-old Margaret Whitmore learned both love and hate on the same day. Someone who understands love and hate becomes like a thief. I secretly observed Sebastian and Sophia Rivers for 2 years. Their correspondence, the small courtyard where he housed her when she returned to the capital 6 months ago. The more I saw, the greater my sorrow grew. So this was how vibrant people and love appeared. They would quarrel, get angry, make up. Sophia Rivers had her own life. When Sebastian wasn't there, she wrote poetry, painted, even went out masked to earn money to send to distant relatives. Gradually, I forgot why I had started watching them. I simply grew increasingly envious. They had their own lives. Why didn't I have one? Because I was the 13th daughter of the Whitmores? I tried hard to think, then despairingly realized, yes, because I was the 13th daughter of the Whitmores. The more I thought, the less I wanted to be a Whitmore daughter or Harrison wife. But the Whitmores had never wronged me. The more I ventured out, the more I saw beggars on roadsides and pleasure houses on streets. My comfortable upbringing, with servants at my beck and call, came from bearing the Whitmore name. Having benefited from this surname, I owed it a debt. From the moment I discovered Sophia Rivers's pregnancy, I began planning for today. It might not succeed, but I wanted to live for myself once. My 20-plus years of propriety became my weapon. Sebastian wouldn't suspect my voluntary divorce was a scheme, nor would the Harrison or Whitmore families think I could abandon parents and family to fake my death. Now my love and hate for Sebastian had grown quite faint. This staged death would bring the Whitmore family many benefits while causing the Harrison and Rivers families considerable trouble. The Harrison family driving their daughter-in-law to death would somewhat affect Sebastian's official evaluation. Sophia Rivers's premarital pregnancy would also create difficulties for some time, and her father's official position might ultimately go to my eldest brother. I never imagined that in such chaotic times Sebastian would still come to see me off. Yet could an act bring such genuine tears? He and I shared only 5 years of lies, yet he could weep so bitterly. He and Miss Rivers had so much history despite these troubles. They would surely grow old together. Wiping away my tears, I took one last look at Sebastian before Charlotte and I rose to leave. Mrs. Edwards waited outside the city to see me off. She was the wife of imperial merchant Vincent Edwards, quite well known in Yong'an. When I met her, she had recently remarried Vincent, reportedly quite fierce with her previous husband, earning the nickname Rouge Tiger, making the ladies at banquets reluctant to converse with her. At that time, I had just discovered Sebastian and Sophia Rivers's affair and felt completely lost. When someone at a banquet mocked me as a clay figure, I remained as defenseless as usual. Mrs. Edwards defended me and told me, "Mrs. Whitmore, in this life, if you're willing to be wronged, there's no end to the wrongs you'll suffer. If you won't defend yourself, who will defend you?" Those simple words, they made the sky seem brighter. A merchant's wife who couldn't integrate into aristocratic circles would face problems. So I helped her several times out of gratitude. Through these interactions, she became like an older sister to me. Successfully faking death and escaping required more than an inner court woman could manage alone. Mrs. Edwards arranged for Charlotte and me to secretly learn swimming, enabling us to reach the distant shore ourselves. Now that we were leaving, she had also procured false identity papers. She pressed 2 documents into my hands reluctantly. "I don't know when we'll meet again. Keep these safe. They're from a batch my husband prepared long ago. 2 of them perfectly match you and Charlotte's appearances. Qingzhou is far from the imperial court with beautiful scenery and open customs. Settle there first, then travel around. I've also found you a reliable friend, a traveling merchant with good skills and an upright character. You can learn the Qingzhou dialect from him during the journey. Rest assured, aside from my husband and me, no one knows your situation. He thinks you're an orphan raised elsewhere returning home. Sister Margaret, go, live your own life. From now on, you're called Willow." Waving goodbye to Sister Edwards, someone helped me into the cart. He smiled brightly. "Greetings, Lady Willow. I'm Lucas Garrison. The 3 of us will be companions on this journey." White clouds drifted in the distance, perfect weather for traveling. I never expected to see Sophia Rivers again in a border town. By then, Lucas and I had a son and daughter. I wanted to see the most beautiful sunset, so he brought us here. Sophia Rivers ran a small shop. When I glimpsed her through the carriage curtain, I thought I'd mistaken someone else, but after careful observation, it was definitely her. Lucas had long known my background. Seeing my restlessness, he volunteered to investigate. Several days later, he returned with news, sighing deeply. "You'll never guess what happened in Yong'an after you left." Having left Yong'an behind as a previous life, I indeed cared nothing for it except my family. Lucas sighed again before continuing. "Your indecisive former husband protected neither you nor that Miss Rivers." The scandal was too great. The Harrison family absolutely refused to marry her as a proper wife. The Rivers family's restoration failed, gaining only a minor position. Sophia Rivers still became a concubine. This might have sufficed, but the Harrisons wanted to restore their reputation by insisting on marrying another Whitmore daughter. Your family naturally refused. Somehow, Sebastian encountered one of your nieces who resembled you by 5/10. That very night, he had his mother propose marriage. That same night, the Harrison household caught fire. The blaze destroyed Sebastian's face, and Sophia Rivers and her daughter disappeared. Sebastian, with his ruined face, could no longer serve as an official and now teaches children in his clan. Though the Harrisons haven't said so explicitly, they've spent these years searching for Miss Rivers, apparently seeking revenge. I remembered Sophia Rivers's bold face from our first meeting. This matched her temperament perfectly. Though we weren't friends, somehow I felt like sighing for her. Lucas pouted. "Are you feeling sorry for that Sebastian fellow?" I shook my head. "Not him. I'm sorry for someone else." Their entanglement ran deeper than mine. More than 20 years of history, having done desperate things to be together, yet ending in mutual destruction. Though Sebastian wronged me most, he had also failed to protect her. Lucas hugged me with amusement. "You're just too soft-hearted. Though I'm not generous enough to give money to someone who hurt my wife, I suppose I can keep the Harrison family from finding her." I smiled and kissed him. "That's enough. This is the extent of my connection with her." After the kiss, Lucas deepened it. In our dizziness, he murmured, "Darling, your eldest brother has been transferred to Yunzhou. Since time has passed, let's visit him. I know you miss them."